who is the owner and operator of that fire truck. And then Andy, who is our Santa every year. And then on the right-hand side, you can see all the other partners we had who helped provide decor, food for the day, and gas to power the vintage fire truck. Here's just some photos throughout the day and some comments that we received on Facebook. Again, just thanking us and thanking the city and fire department for helping put this on and letting the kids see Santa. This next slide is a small video for those who didn't get to see the parade. The beginning of the video is a small advertisement that Cumulus Radio put on as part of our marketing efforts and outreach to the community. So again, we just want to thank everyone who helped us put this event on and the community for showing up. We think we saw a few thousand families out there waving hi to Santa. So we're really proud of everyone that came together and put this event on. So we're looking forward to seeing some more special events this year. So any questions, comments? Here.
I just wanted to say, Director Roberts, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate the effort that everyone put into this and the community coming together. I know my daughters really loved it. And the Glimpse app was a great way for us to be able to track Santa and help me rush everyone out of the house when it was time to come and run down the street. So we really appreciate it. And as far as the letters as well, we forgot to write our address on it first and then realized it after we reviewed the website. So we were able to correct our errors, but appreciate that as well. I know it's probably not easy to write a lot of 372 letters to folks. So is there anything, for future events that, as a director, we'd be able to help you out with, or?
We'll let you know.
Okay, all right.
We appreciate doing this for the community. It really, it makes our heart happy to put this on. It's part of the job that we love. So it really, to get to do this, just, it warms our hearts, so.
Anybody else? No? I caught up with you when the parade stopped right behind this building, the first stop, and again at the baseball fields. And the crowds along the way were really excited. And the music was a great idea. The Glimpse app was a great idea. The printing out the schedules, I mean, all of the stuff really fit. And the planning involved in doing something like that, I was really impressed by how well it came off. It was, Connor looked like he was stressed at about 10.10 but during the event, because he was so focused on keeping everything on track. But it was really great, and everybody had a lot of fun. And they got a little ahead of schedule, so the break at the pool was a little longer. But Santa made a point of going around and sort of lurking in the background, a social distance away, to be a part of the pictures that the families took of the kids. It was really well done, really well handled, and everybody was having a good time, including the officers following. So great work. Thank you. Okay, move on to, is there any other presentation, Mary, or is that the only one? That's the only one? Okay. Move on to public comment. Because we can't have people from the public here, we collect the comments via email, and Karen will read them for us.
2 public comments. First one is from Audra Seldine. Dear Chairman Malloy and Board of Directors, Las Posas Trails Committee, representing the 450 people that signed the petitions to keep the trails and equestrian park in Las Posas Hills, wish to thank you for working with us in 2019 and 2020. Mary Otten and Mr. Sarasolo have recently repaired the observation and judges stand, so it is now a much safer structure, as well as addressing a few problems that were brought to their attention during the last year. The equestrians and hikers in the Las Posas area appreciate this very much. Our community has different recreational needs than other neighborhoods, and without our park and trails, engaging in this recreation would not be possible. Our committee is looking forward to working with the district in 2021 to meet the goal of making the trails and park a permanent asset of the Pleasant Valley Recreation Park District. Thank you. Las Posas Trails Committee, Audra Seldine, Nora Ryan, Kristen Loft, and the others. Email from Dan Johnston. Dear Board, I realize that Brightview has submitted the lowest cost bid to the board and that they have history with the park. Approving the status quo at the fields is not in the best interest of the field. The fields have been resting for over a month currently. When we arrived at the fields, there were wet spots from broken irrigation, weeds all over the fields, and ruts up and down the fields due to them driving trucks on the turf. They damaged the fields with the maintenance. They have not been adequately managing the turf on these fields and have had several times they do not repair broken pipes or irrigation heads. The field is currently in terrible shape after the winter break. The fields were supposed to be treated with soil amendment and fertilizer. The fields, however, were treated with mulch. I am sure this was a cost-saving measure by Brightview. The material placed on the field did not contain soil or nutrients for the turf. I believe that unless Brightview is putting in writing how they are going to change their management, that a vote of now to allow for more bids is a better option than carrying forward with what appears to harm the field more than help them. The lowest cost is often because it is the least valuable. Dan Johnson.
Okay. We'll move on to item 7, consent agenda. Is there any board member would like to pull item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Director Kelley,
Aye.
Director Roberts,
Aye.
Director Magner,
Aye.
Director Dransfeldt, Chairman Malloy.
Aye. Okay. Item 8, new items. Item A, consideration and approval of bid award for landscape maintenance at Pleasant Valley Field Sports Complex. Looks like it will be Mr. Bob making the
be a-
presentation.
There'll be a combination of staff that'll
Oh,
be
okay.
presenting, so just as an FYI.
Well, Happy New Year. Great to see you guys again. Congratulations to the two of you, the new ones. Chairman Malloy and the board of directors, we're going to present to you the bids for Pleasant Valley Parks, and also the analysis will be done by Jessica Puckett, and Brandon Lopez will also be helping me out on this presentation. So here we go. And you want questions along the way or at the end? Either's
At
fine.
the end.
So this, again, it's for the maintenance at Pleasant Valley Fields. As you know, this park opened in January 2010. Now it's, of course, 11 years old. It's a 55-acre sports park. It's got 34 playable acres. It's located at 200 West Park Drive out there at Camarillo along the freeway in the Village of the Park community. Maintenance of this park has been handled through a contractor since the beginning. When it was first developed during the construction phases, they looked at alternative ways of taking care of this park through staff, through contractors, and they found out it was least expensive for a contractor to do it than it was us in-house. with a significantly lower cost to the district. So again, upon completion of the construction, the district went out for an RFP, and we had 6 qualified bidders bid it. And Valley Crest came in, Valley Crest is now Brightview, by the way. They've changed their name, got bought out. And we selected them over their turf management, their familiarity with the product, their experience in overall maintenance of golf courses, parks throughout the nation. So the original contract was for 3 years, and it was a $728,000, $568,000 job. The district extended it for 2 years in 2014, and we also added janitorial services to this contract, and we also negotiated them to go down 4% on overall cost. So we had a little bit of savings, not a savings, but it just helped us out. 2017, we went out to bid a couple years back, and Brightview was a sole bidder. They're the only ones that showed up for the job walk. Another company showed up, but they had they were late, so I had to disqualify them. Again, this landscape, the park is a level 1. We try to keep this to the best we can. It gets used by a lot of people throughout the Southern California, even out of state. People come play on it. So we've had colleges come out and use it. You know, it's well-used park. It's held the high esteem. You know, it's a sports park in Ventura County is way up there compared to the other ones in Oxnard, Ventura. This is up there. All right, now I'm going to give it to Jessica Puckett. She's going to do the cost analysis. Something came up last one of the board meetings a couple months ago.
Good evening. How are you? How is everybody doing? My name is Jessica Puckett, and I am one of the administrative analysts with the focus on our Parks Division. And I performed the cost analysis for the park. So just the point of doing this cost analysis, as said, is to provide a perspective on the value of the services provided by contracting maintenance at PV Fields. It's analysis of the cost of contracting versus in-house maintenance as well. So looking at current versus what would it be in-house. And we performed it alongside the RFP process. We wanted to be able to give a good perspective of the RFP results and bids that we got as well. So the driving focus and question of the cost analysis was, what would it cost the district to provide the exact same level of service the current contractor is expected to provide at PV Fields? So one note to mention is I used current 2020 pricing in the analysis. So not looking at the pricing that we got back from any of the bids. So just one thing to keep in mind as we go through it. So some historical information. As mentioned earlier, we have had 4 contracts with Brightview since November of 2009. Our latest contract, March 2018 to February 2021, for a 3-year total of $905,536.44. And as I mentioned, this analysis gives a both historical and an estimated cost of services, materials, and equipment for the district presently expects of the contractor and the staff maintaining the park, because we do have staff that does do work out at the park in addition to the contractor. The approaches that we used for the in-house cost estimates, for staffing costs, we used a liberal highest cost scenario. So we took for fringe benefits for rates of the highest that we could have. So in the event that if we hired new staff, what would be the worst case scenario, for example? For capital equipment and supply costs, we used a moderate midline, particularly for capital. Most of the turf equipment, many of the larger pieces, it ranged anywhere from $6,000 to $100,000 in quotes that we were given by equipment contractors. So we used as moderate line, midline as we could. So in looking at current work that the staff does, we would need to, if we brought maintenance in-house, we would need to hire a minimum of 3 new positions that would be dedicated strictly to that park. 1 brand new crew leader, 1 grounds 2, and 1 grounds 1. So we took, for the current expenses, used those 3 positions, as well as then in the in-house, using those positions and rates for those. And as mentioned, currently, district staff, these 3 positions do perform work at this park for the maintenance of the park. So those are current as well as future. As mentioned, currently we have a park supervisor and a crew leader, 1 of each that oversees PV Fields or is assigned to it and works with the current contractor. Staff estimates of current expenses that we have 1,221 district man-hours dedicated to the park. The overwhelming bulk of that is of grounds 1 and grounds 2 hours, man-hours, but there is supervisory staff hours included in that. And that chart is in more detail in the staff report. District costs could fluctuate based on any unexpected repairs, tournament and event bookings, inclement weather, vandalism, etc. If there is vandalism, for example, our staff goes and cleans that, not Brightview. So those different factors can raise cost, or it can be less. So current expenses total, the Brightview 3-year contract cost for this past year of year 3 was $316,606.44. The personnel and operational costs combined for district contributions is $57,872.82. So the overall current total contribution is $374,479.26. So going on, that was part 1 of the analysis. Going on to part 2, looking at what would it be for in-house district maintenance only, no contracting. I broke it down into 3 different categories: personnel cost, operational cost, and capital cost. So this chart goes through the various personnel costs of the new positions for the crew leader, grounds 2, grounds 1 at full time, and then hours that we estimate that our current staff would need to dedicate if we took over maintenance. So the total that comes to is $321,906.88. Just some notes about that. District leadership, it is recommended that they would need to and should move qualified district staff, current staff, into those positions instead of hiring out new. Being that it is one of our premier parks, we do want staff who are familiar with our policies and procedures and familiar with the park. So we would prefer, and it is recommended, that new staff be hired to fill in our smaller parks to learn the ropes while we have experienced dedicated staff at that park. There would be increased cost, as you see in the chart, of time for the park services manager, park supervisor, irrigation specialist, and mechanic. We would have capital equipment out at the park, so we would need to dedicate time for the mechanic to maintain that equipment that they currently do not do now. It does not take into consideration, we did not do any estimates for the backfill of staff that would need to be dedicating their time to this park. So hours that the crew leaders, supervisors, etc., and the park services manager would have to go and add to that park, we did not do any estimates for that. So that is additional costs that would be there, but that was not included in this. So for operational costs, which, as you can see, all of the various items, that comes to an estimated total of $161,748. One item also to mention, it's kind of an outlier, but it is a cost that needs to be considered when looking at doing it in-house, is grid pruning. Grid pruning is recommended every 7 to 8 years. This year, it was the first year that we had that done at this park. Now, Brightview did it in exchange for reduced hours and time that their staff had at the park due to closures from the pandemic. But in the future, that would need to be added as a cost and break it up. Ideally, we could do it into a 2-year cycle, but for a one-time quote we got from West Coast Arborist, who we use for the rest of our tree care, it was $27,225. And as said, it's not included in the first or second year cost estimates. So our capital costs are broken up into 3 different categories. You have tractors, trucks, and mowers, which has an average industry life cycle of 10 years. Our turf maintenance equipment, which has an average life cycle of 7 years. And then non-truck tractor mower equipment, such as hand tools, blowers, saws, trimmers, etc., that is 2 to 6 years. So the first of capital cost, the way that I have it is starting up first in our trucks, mowers. Those are our large-scale items. As you can see, all of that would have nothing as a backup. If something goes down, then we would be without that equipment just due to the large price and cost. We wouldn't buy multiple of those. The next section of the blue is our turf maintenance equipment. And again, all of these items are midline pricing and midline volume and amounts. Could go significantly higher, or it could be a little bit less. And then our third category, due to the volume of items, I summarized it, is the non-trucks tractor mower items. And that coming in at $15,950. So our category totals for all 3 of capital, you have your trucks, tractor, mower total of $288,200, turf maintenance equipment of $85,000, non-trucks tractor mower at $15,950. So for a first year total capital cost, an estimated $389,150. So in totality of looking at the cost for years 1 and 2, if we had it to do it in-house, personnel costs would be, and operational costs, to combine those for a total of $483,655.17, and our total capital $389,150. So for first year total cost, if we were to take over tomorrow, we'd be looking at $872,805.17. If we looked at year 2, if we did not have to spend any capital, we'd be looking at $494,537.41, and that was including a 2% inflation rate. So a little bit extra to count for that. So the fiscal impact and answering the question of the analysis is, what would it cost for the district to provide the exact same level of services the current contractor is expected to provide at the site? So as mentioned, $872,805.17 for year 1. Startup, $494,537.41 for year 2. So that would be an increase of $498,325.91 in year 1, and then second year $120,058.15 year 2 from the current contract ending in February 21 with Brightview and district contribution in time. So the main, hopefully that answers and gives a good perspective and value of what a contractor provides versus compared to if we were to take it in-house. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Brandon Lopez, who will talk about the RFP process.
Wait a minute. Does the board have any questions?
We can save them until the end.
Pardon?
Oh, no, we can save them until you said save them until the end, right?
Okay, yeah. Well, but they're going to move on to the RFP, and I want to see if there's any questions regarding the estimate of the costs.
No.
No, okay, thank you.
Mark, I do.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Lee.
Jessica, I don't understand the difference between current staff and what would be required if we take it over. That's a 7-day-a-week operation, and we're only figuring 2 full-time people?
It would be 3 full-time people. So 1 full-time crew leader, 1 full-time grounds 2, and 1 full-time grounds 1. So 3 full-time staff would need to, at minimum, would need to be dedicated to the park if we were to take it in-house. And then also supervision from hours dedicated from the park services manager. So we have 4 positions in the staff
Right,
line.
I
so
understand that.
It would
I
be
just-
3 dedicated, full-time.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a follow-up to that. With regards to the hours for the park services manager, park supervisor, irrigation specialist, mechanic, how did you calculate those? Were those hours that Brightview is currently doing that? So the park services manager shows going from 104 hours to 260 if we took over in-house. Park supervisor shows the hours doubling from 260 to 520, and then irrigation specialist 25 to 832. So how did you go about calculating those?
Basically, Brandon and I sat down and looked at what would the hours currently that his staff dedicates to that site, and then looking at what the tasks would be and how many hours that they would be if we went in-house. So it was truly a estimate, not a fine, detailed, we know that we have 8 hours here and we're gonna multiply that. It was looking at what are the tasks that we know that we have to accomplish every week and basing that on an annual estimate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just,
No?
you know, I know that it's just a rough guess or an estimate, but I was wondering, is that essentially, I mean, what would be a good way to calculate that? Because seeing the park services manager hours dedicated go up by roughly 160 hours on top of that, you know, is there that much additional management, or, you know, how do you get to that level of management, 160 additional hours, you know, while you have the other personnel that have, you know, been hired and, you know, the 3 additional workers that are on top of the other? I mean, how do you arrive at 260 hours of management from 104 right now? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Some of what we did is, I guess, we use things like, for example, the mechanic. We looked at regular maintenance that we can kind of project of mower maintenance, equipment maintenance, things like that. And we kind of extrapolated that over the year to kind of come to those numbers. As far as the irrigation, there's not a whole lot of routine maintenance. With the aging equipment out there, we're starting to get more and more repairs. So a lot of that is just truly an estimate of the time that Brightview currently spends out there, and kind of just of our knowledge of other parks, and that's an estimate. And then knowing that it's our staff that's out there, and we're gonna have more of a hands-on approach with our staff. It's just gonna require more maintenance from us.
One of the positions, for example, currently right now for the crew lead, I put in 52 hours for the current, just for that person to manage his staff that goes over there. Does he spend 52 hours exactly for the entire year? That we don't have to the paper. But we know that there's at least a good estimate of an hour a week that person is spending managing their staff, having to decide, do they need to go over there, who goes over there, et cetera. Looking at it from a perspective of if we're gonna do it in-house and do that full time, it was, let's see how many hours we think we'd have to dedicate per week, and knowing that all the tasks that we have to go through, that's the estimate that we came up with.
And I understand the, you know, kind of the mechanic and the irrigation specialist. Those are, you know, I think those can be calculated a little more easily. I just think that maybe, you know, speaking with Brightview about how many hours their equivalents, you know, spend doing that right now would be helpful as far as, okay, what is their equivalent of a park services manager, and how many hours do they spend managing those personnel as well? It's just, I mean, I understand the people who go out and the operations. It's more the management supervisor, their workload doubling. I don't necessarily, you know, I think would like to see a comparison with Brightview, and if their manager or their parks, if their supervisor out there at the parks spends 260 hours, a year supervising them, and if the Park Services manager spends 260 hours or 160 hours out there as well, so.
These are also worst-case scenarios. We didn't want to completely underestimate it. We do go this route. So again, these are liberal estimates, kind of give us a worst-case scenario.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Any other, Bev?
What benefits are there with bringing this in-house that would justify the about $100,000 difference if we chose to go this route instead of with Brightview?
So what we chose to look at was strictly looking at the cost and the numbers. We didn't do a qualitative comparison and analysis. We didn't do a performance analysis. So certainly there's many in the industry that would argue you could have a higher quality if you have in-house versus contracting, but that's very subjective. So one of the things, again, not to evade your question, but we did not go into that and looking at qualitative. We just did quantitative of what the true cost would be.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to the RFP process then.
Good evening, Brandon Lopez, Park Supervisor. When selecting a potential contractor, the district goes through a request for proposal process. The RFP process provides a transparent opportunity for contractors to submit a competitive proposal, providing the most value to the district. We require contractors to submit a bid packet, including qualifications, references, workforce, financial background, equipment capacity, and cost estimates. When preparing for this contract, the technical specifications were amended to satisfy the current and changing needs of the site. Some of the highlights for this are all mowing equipment must remain on site. This will mitigate cross-contamination of the turf and other diseases into our turf. Weekly site inspections, this is something we currently do, however now it is now included into the contract. On top of that, we're now requiring monthly inspections, which will include services performed, conditions of the park, and potential concerns. This will be required to be attached with the invoices each month, and if it is not included, the invoice will not be paid. Staff reached out to 10 different reputable landscape companies. It also listing the RFP for 2 weeks in the VC Star. We had 7 companies attend the mandatory job walk on October 29th. This allowed potential bidders to get a better understanding of the site, allowed staff to reiterate performance requirements, and explain expectations of the contract. We received 4 bids out of the 7 companies that attended the job walk: Brightview Landscape Services, Enhanced Landscape Management, Stay Green, and Western Golf. The bids range from $912,612 to nearly $1.6 million. Numbers are on the chart. Some of the factors that we looked at when evaluating the bids were cost of services rendered, similar projects by the contractors, certifications, years in the business, and the equipment list, and staffing. This is a chart of the qualifications for each of the 4 bidders that submitted packets. Staff is recommending the selection of Brightview Landscape Services because the proposal successfully satisfies the RFP. Brightview provides the most extensive equipment list of the other contractors. It is the most competitive price, coming in $75,000 less than the next lowest proposal, which is only a 0.78% increase from the current contract. Brightview is including 8 tree crew days, which is $25,000 to $30,000 value to the district, which will be a coming expense that we'll need to look at near every 7 to 8 years. The fiscal impact, if the board approves and awards the contract, Brightview Landscape Services, to Brightview Landscape Services, the total cost for the 3-year term would be $912,612. Below is a breakdown of the yearly cost. The first year shows a substantial savings because of the lack of programming due to the pandemic. After evaluating the 4 bids, staff is recommending the board to approve and award the contract agreement between the district and Brightview Landscape Services for landscape maintenance and janitorial services for Pleasant Valley Sports Complex. This leaves us with 3 options. The first, the board may choose to approve and award the bid to Brightview Landscape Services. 2, reject all proposals and reinitiate the request for proposal process for contractual services. Or 3, allow the contract to expire and initiate in-house maintenance of the site. Want to let you guys know as well, we have Brightview on the phone, as well as Scott Godfrey, the general manager, and Lazaro Ramos, the account manager, or the branch manager, I'm sorry. If you guys have any further questions.
I just have one initial question. Was Scott the person that was out there that day that?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, any questions from the board for Brandon regarding the RFP process and the breakdown of the bids? Jordan? Okay, Bob, no?
No.
Okay. So let's move on to discussion then. I do have one question before we move on to discussion, and that's Mr. Johnston's question. I'd like to have that addressed, the complaints about the current condition of the park. Now, I understand that when we contract with a contractor, that they sometimes don't do what's on the list of things to do, and that we're supposed to be monitoring them, and that's not supposed to happen. So in looking at the amount of review that we're doing here, I'm kind of surprised by Mr. Johnston's email. So are the things that he suggests the case? Are there broken pipes? Are there flooded? Or are we talking about walking out there after an inch of rain and seeing puddled water?
I mean, we're continuously getting broken pipes out there. Part of that's just due to the aging equipment. I know yesterday we had a broken valve that Brightview staff was working on. We definitely had ruts after we spread the material. The Brightview came back and rolled the turf, aerated, and applied sand. And as far as the weeds go, I know we came back from the holidays on Monday, and later that day, Brightview had a crew out there pulling by hand the weeds. They've also done broadleaf applications since then, and have continued throughout the week to pull weeds by hand.
Yeah, I can remember a few years ago, we had a major weed problem out there. And one of the nice things about a company the size of Brightview is they have the bodies to go out there and literally pull 45 acres of weeds by hand.
The problem with that is when they do that process, they go out there with short-handled hose and tear the hell out of the turf when they do that.
Yeah.
Brent, can I ask?
Yeah, you go ahead.
It's a little bit off of the RFP, but you know I keep a very close look at those fields. Since you and I and Scott were out there and we looked around at the irrigation issues and so on and so forth, what has been done in order to remedy those problems? Because I remember we looked at them and they didn't get fixed for weeks after that. And I was there last night, and it does not look like anybody was pulling any weeds. There were ruts everywhere. I do not know how it came to pass that somebody allowed them to drive non-designated vehicles out there and create all those ruts on that field. I was getting emails from community people that were out there on that. How did that happen? That they brought another contractor onto the field, and obviously Pleasant Valley's not paying attention, and they tore the fields up. How does that happen? How does a contractor even do that? They've been out there for 10 years. How do they do something like that? Okay, I'll take Bob's answer.
The same people have been spreading the topsoil for 10 years, are the same ones. 8 years, 7 years, 5. I know we've had an issue probably in the past. We shut the water down just about 2 weeks to dry that turf out. It was a cluster. We had their superintendent take off for vacation. Brandon was on vacation, and it was just we saw the material that when they mixed, and when it came out, it was a little different because we didn't accept it. The first mix they gave us, and then they made it come back and redid it, and it made it okay. This is good, but again, it was. We should have been more on it. They should have been more on it. Next year, we had a meeting with them about the.
Are you referring to the year they put topping out there with the glass in it?
That was another issue. So we're learning from our mistakes, their mistakes. We have a 5-day notice in there. If they don't get if we write them a letter, a deficiency notice, they have 5 days to take care of it. If they don't, we'll hire some staff. We'll go out there and do it. We'll send them the bill.
But when you spread 40 acres of glass out on a field, you don't pick it up easily.
No, you're 100% right. I remember that one. Also, they're going to not going to use the same contractor they did to spread it. They're going to pull in somebody with a lighter piece of equipment. It'll take longer. So what's that's going to do on our end of it, I'm going to have to shut that park down for 3 or 4 days more just to get that spread. So just to do one thing right, we're going to have to cut on something else. And I'd rather cut on a couple days of practicing than what we have now. And again, we walked it the other day. Mary and I were out there. We walked in Brandon, and yeah, we saw the ruts, and like, are you kidding me? They're still here. You know, certain areas still have it. Other areas don't. Some do. And that was addressed today. We were on the phone with them saying, come out here and roll it. Come out here and plug it and sand it.
You realize that rolling it does help, but it doesn't fix it.
No, you're compacting.
I mean, it's not like it's a cure or anything.
No, that's why they're going to come out.
The cure is not doing something that stupid in the first place.
100%. And that's why I said they're going to hire a different company with a lighter piece of equipment.
Well, they need to have turf wheels on it. If they're in the business of doing sports parks, they should have sports park equipment. That's the end of the story right there.
It's one of the equipments they don't have. I don't
Well,
know. I mean, it's such an expensive piece of equipment. I don't know who has it.
The way I look at it, I've looked at their equipment. That equipment that's out there right now looks like the same equipment that's been out there for 10 years.
They were supposed to get new stuff 2 years ago, and they didn't. I'm not sure what happened with that, but what I know that was it.
Well,
They
when
talked about
when
it.
you, Bob, when you tell me I'm not sure what happened with that, here's what I'm thinking. Why not?
I didn't research
I
it.
would have been on their butts on that stuff.
It was something we didn't research. We just said they're going to do it. They're still cutting. We catch them when they're bad blades or their mowers not level.
Well, you
And
saw the job they did a couple of months ago where the blades were not sharp and they tore the heck out of the grass.
Right, and I remember talking about it. It was like walking through the sand. It was.
And the problem is that the guys that are out there aren't real sports field guys. They're just guys they hired. And when they are creating ruts in that expensive field and grass, they see it because the next time they come by, they see what happened, and they just keep doing it. Right. Nobody that was a person experienced in sports field maintenance would do something like that.
And again, we all learn from this one. Like, no, from now on, if Brandon's on vacation, Nick or I are going out there, make sure they're doing their job right. They will have their superintendent out there, and the guy they had watching it happen, I don't believe he's with the company anymore.
Thank God.
I know, it's
It's
nothing I can
like
do about it now, but,
we-
but they
the-
will fix this issue, like I said, because we talked to them today.
The problem is that this damage is permanent.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, we'll fire the guy, or we'll give him more training. That doesn't fix the problem.
Oh, no,
It can't get done in the first place.
It probably cost them $40,000 to fix this mistake.
Well, I mean, I'm not satisfied with the cure. I've seen it. And
No,
if
they're
you,
gonna be-
if
and
you
they'll be
walked
back,
it
yeah.
recently, you know those fields don't look any better now than they did when the shutdown occurred. They do not look better.
The turf has gotten thicker, I will say, in the soccer areas.
Maybe in certain areas, not in the areas I've seen.
Not in the whole thing, but it has gotten a thicker thatch to it. So
And that stuff they put on it, that looked like wood chips to me.
and exactly, and it's not originally what we saw. When they brought that sample out, it was not like that. So Pete, I don't want to say names on here, but the company they bought it from,
I mean, I'm just incredulous as to how, I just can't understand how all of these things continually happen.
right.
I
And
just don't get it. Well, I have some questions for the contractor. when it comes to-
Scott Lazar, can you hear?
I can hear you, Bob.
Director Kelley would like to ask some questions.
Scott, you remember me?
Yes, hey, Bob. Yes, I remember you.
We had that conversation out there at the field a couple of months ago. Do you remember that? And
Yes. Yes, I do.
do you remember when I left there, we had an agreement that all of these things that we were talking about were going to get taken care of, right?
And we did, and we jumped on those irrigation issues right away, and that valve was actually fixed, and unknowns to me, had already been fixed when we had that conversation.
I
So
went out
a lot
there
of
for
those
2
issues that we
weeks and it
had
wasn't
discussed were remedied right away.
Scott, I went out there 2 weeks after that. Mary can back me up because I kept calling her and telling her, and the irrigation in that area where we were standing did get fixed, but the irrigation up in the middle of the where the lights are stayed that way for weeks. Aside from that, is the equipment, am I right, is the equipment that's out there the same equipment that was out there when Valley Crest took over?
I believe we've switched out the equipment since then. As to exactly when, I would have to go back and get the service record. We typically run mowers for about 5 years, so I would have to go back and figure out
It looks
when
like
the
the
last
same
time that
run
one
to
was
me.
switched out.
The other thing that troubles me, Scott, and please don't try to figure out where I'm going by the questions I ask,
Absolutely.
is that it seems to me that when there's a broken sprinkler head or what have you, it's always the people that use the park that are the ones that let the guys know, the contractor know, that it needs to be repaired. And it's obvious when I see it that it's been that way for a while. And so I really don't understand why somebody can't take a cart each day and make a couple of runs up the field, not even have to do the whole field, just do part of it one day, part of it the next day, something like that, and check for problems. Because if you catch it right away, it's an easy fix. If you let it dribble out for days and days, it ends up being a 5, 6, 7 feet mud hole that's not so easy to fix. As you know, that park gets great use, and if we fix them right away, we can, if you know how to fix it, you can play on it right away without any downtime. That's what we hopefully shoot for. But it does, when we first signed this contract with you guys, it was with Valley Crest, and to tell you the truth, I don't really know what the connection is between Brightview and Valley Crest, if it's just a change of name or some corporate reorganization, a sale, I don't really know. But I had the guys from Valley Crest at that time at the meeting. Director Malloy was there, and Elaine, were you at that meeting? Yeah. And I took great pains in asking the powers that be from Valley Crest if they were a real sports field maintenance outfit and constructing outfit. And I was assured that that was the case, without doubt. And so I said, okay, that we had a problem because you guys participate, or Valley Crest participated in the building of the fields, and I went out there and saw the way that they were built, and I was absolutely, I mean, I had some pretty bad feelings and some pretty bad things to say. And so I was a little reluctant to vote to have Valley Crest do the maintenance contract. But I went along with it because we were assured that it was sports field. But the guys that you have out there are not top-notch sports field guys. They're guys, just guys that you hire, and there's usually always one that's a trainee. And most of the time don't speak English. So even if you alert them to a problem, you got to go through people to make sure that it gets done. I just want your assurance that we will treat, this is not some community park that you let kikuyu grass grow in. These are very, this is a very important asset to this community. And the people in the district are still paying for it. Every year, they pay taxes and we dole out money. We can't come out and have the place infested with weeds. We just can't have that. That turf cost more than $1 million to put that turf in. And like I said, we're still paying for it. What we need the contractor to do, I've got your letter here, and I have a lot more things that I could ask you about, but pretty much what it all comes down to is I want your assurance that you will treat this place as not just some cash cow, but treat it commensurate with what our interest is, and that is to keep the place free of dirt and weeds and undulating surfaces. It already undulates a hell of a lot more than I want it to, and make it so that we can count on you guys. Because your letter was great, but the problem is I don't see much follow-through on the stuff that you've listed in your letter. And I've made that known over the past 10 years. And so that's what I want your promise that you will actually have guys out there that know what they're doing, invest in equipment if you need it to make it happen, and make it so that we're not constantly having to shut down the facility because it gets unusable or needs maintenance more than it should. And so what I would ask you is, can I have your promise that you'll do that?
Absolutely. As a community member and a taxpayer myself, and my kids play soccer on those fields, and my community and my neighbors, absolutely. You have my assurances. I've been really involved for about 1.5 years, and I just want to make sure the moderator chimed in my ear as Brandon was doing the announcement. Just so we're clear, I'm the regional vice president for Brightview Landscape Services, and Lazaro is the branch manager. So Lazaro is more tied to the daily. However, this is something that's near and dear to me, and I'm out there about every other week myself. On top of what Lazaro, our account manager, production manager, and local team are doing. So you absolutely have the assurances. We want to continue to be a partner with the community, whether it is an investment in new equipment. As Bob was saying a little bit earlier, we are absolutely changing the way in which we put down the top dress moving forward. That company will no longer be working with us. We will most likely be self-performing the top dressing with proper sports equipment. That is going to be 100% changed over to a different system. The other thing that we'll be doing is we have a Brightview Sports Turf program that has been up and running recently, and it's world-renowned. Murray Cook does professional sports complexes throughout the country, the world, and we'll be bringing out one of his team members at least once a year to go through our program, provide specialized training for our team members, and maybe hopefully even twice a year if we can get them going. But to really invest specifically in sports turf management. You absolutely have my assurances on that.
Well, we need Mr. Crook out there right now, as a matter of fact.
I placed the email a little bit earlier, so I'm going to see if I can get him out here within the next month or so, or weeks or so, excuse me.
Okay. Can we make sure that no contractor ever comes on those fields and drives on them without the appropriate tires and appropriate equipment?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all I have, Scott. Thank you.
I just want to reiterate what Director Kelley said, and I put a lot of weight behind what Daniel Johnson stated as well. He knows what he's talking about, and I'm, read all of the materials and came in here and was a little bit surprised by some of the things that I've heard, because I'm new to the board and fresh to the board, and I appreciate the history there and the issues that were brought up. And I think that if we need to maintain compliance more on our end to ensure that things are happening the way that they need to, we want to be able to support that as well, because the contract is very well laid out and our expectations are clear. So if they're not being met, then it becomes a matter of enforcement essentially. So I just want to say I appreciate everything you had to say, Director Kelley and Daniel Johnson as well, and give me something to chew on for a while.
Okay. Bev, would you like to go? Yeah, we're in comment now. We're done with questions. We're commenting, so.
I'm very concerned with the comments that were brought up via Dan Johnson and echoing what Director Kelley and Director Roberts have brought up. However, if this contract has been in place for 10 years and it's not getting better, I'm sorry, 10 years is sufficient to be able to prove yourself. And looking at that, it makes me wonder of speaking when we spoke with Jessica of, okay, what about qualitative and performative analysis of bringing it in-house? And it's making me move more toward that. And, perhaps it is more expensive, but it might be more cost effective without running into all of these problems, and allowing more playtime and in general just saving headaches. But as it stands right now, I don't believe that giving them another chance when they've had one time after time, unless we put them on some sort of a shorter contract, probationary, and everything has to be met up to our expectations. Otherwise, it's a no-go.
Chair Malloy? I'm sorry, I didn't realize we're in comment. Do you mind if I ask a couple questions either to staff or the directors? So, Director Kelley, you said that we've been having issues with the turf ever since it was installed, and it was cost about $1 million when it was installed. What
That was an estimate. I'm not
Oh yeah, no. But what have the issues been? Because it seems like the turf is essentially very, very sensitive and delicate. If there's I believe it's a quarter inch of rain or something, it has to shut down, and vehicles drive over it and it becomes uneven. So it seems like it's not quite as robust as some of the other parks. And I know Director Mishler had said that, mentioned native soils and that sort of thing. Is there some sort of turf that we need to be considering in place of this to resolve some of these issues in addition to whatever maintenance is being done? That's just kind of a question that I have.
Bob, you want to address that?
As far as, the ruts have been, happened 3 times that I've been here, since that park's been inception. One with the Musco lighting, another time with spreading the topsoil, and then this last time. Again, we turn that water off at least 10 days, 9-10 days ahead of time, just to dry the park out. And yes, we do shut it down, or we have expectations with turf cleats in a wintertime, because if that grass does get wet and stuff, and it starts, it's 10 years old, it's going to start showing wear. And the more we can give it its rest and let that grass grow back in, it's Bermuda. It's not going to grow in the wintertime. I mean, that's one of the issues right now. All the weeds are popping. We've had some decent weather. We've had little rain, so the irrigation is still fertilizing and everything. And when we're on a schedule now, it's in the contract that they have to do a schedule. Show me a schedule that what is your game plan to do all along. So we've throughout the years, this contract's gotten better and better, in my opinion. We're trying to make it flow with the park as it changes. Again, the park's 11 years old, so we keep trying to hit the right things that are making it, fix the right things that aren't being fixed yet. And like I said, with this contract now, we've got that written in there. It was in there before, but now people are aware of it. Like, if you don't want to do the job, we'll hire somebody and come do it, and you'll pay the bill. We've taken, like I said, the turf. Like, had a meeting with, like, we can't have this. I mean, my general managers get it. I'm getting it. And it's like, I can't have this. So it's little things we're working, not little things, but we're working on these issues. So.
And is one of those considerations replacing the turf with something more robust, or is that an option? I'm not as well
That'd be up
versed
to you guys.
as-
It'd probably cost $2 million.
So-
Tear it out and redo it. I bet you're $2
So
million.
let me kind of jump in for just a second. So you're right, Director Roberts, there's when, and I'm sure Director Kelley can probably go into more detail as well as the other ones, but when that park was built, the soil that's out there is not the best soil. And that has, if you listen to any of the meetings, you will know. And so part of the challenge you have is that you have bad soil, which has been some of the initial issues with it. So to have grass that grows has been a challenge. So a couple things that we've been doing over the course of the last 5 years to make it better. It's not perfect, but some of them we've added. We had a turf analysis done about 6-8 months ago, which is also why, and we had an independent person do that, because we wanted to make sure that that was part of this RFP process. So we've gone from how many times, I think we originally just did 4 times that we were doing aerification.
We're doing 3, now we're up to 11.
Now we're up to 11. So there's been changes to it, and part of that has been that. We've also, with the fertigation system, we just put that in. That's been part of this process as we're doing it. So it's really going to depend on how well those roots take place. And so part of this has been doing that. The question is do we end up replacing all the turf, and what kind of turf do you put in? And then you're looking at millions of dollars to do that. So we've been trying to do small steps to help with the fertilization out there. And I think that these are all steps that we're trying to do as part of that.
Well, to further answer Director's question, the turf that's out there is the toughest turf that we could get at the time. GN1 is known to be one of the toughest hybrid Bermudas out there. There may be some newer ones now that have been developed over the last few years that are a little tougher, but it's tough. As Mary said, they scraped 8 feet of topsoil, of the most beautiful topsoil in the world, off of that field, and we planted on clay. Director Mishler laid that out a couple of months ago, very detailed and very clearly. And so any grass that you put on there is going to be hard. The hybrid Bermuda is closely knit grass that is actually hard to hurt. But it also relies on getting the nutrients from the soil to keep it robust and strong. And so It's just a problem that is built in, it's baked in the cake, and we just have to deal with it. And so I don't want anyone to take my earlier comments out of context. It's still, no matter what problems I have experienced or observed over the last 10 years, it's still the best place around. People from all over the country will tell you that. Yes, there are some things I would have liked to have seen done differently. I'm sure that some of the other directors feel the same way. But you don't always get what you want, and we didn't. But it's not like I think everything's bad. It's not. It's still the best place to play anywhere around. But I'm just frustrated over some of these recurring, and emphasis on the word recurring, problems that I think are human errors or derived from humans that I just want to see. I don't want to see this investment go like other places in other communities where it's just one big dirt bowl, and while our citizens are still paying their property taxes and paying big dollars. And that could easily happen. And this board has done a hell of a job over the years managing it to keep it looking the way that it does. And so when the public drives by and they look at it, they think, wow, that's beautiful, instead of, why is that all just dirt out there? If you drive down the 5 freeway, just coming into the 118, you'll see a field out there. It's unbelievable. It is 100% dirt. And it used to be grass, and I know that because I used to take teams there. And all it takes is to let it slip, and once it slips, it's hard to get it back. Yes, I still think there's more that we can do to prevent as much wear. I think that turf shoes should be worn by all of the participants anytime it's not a game situation. That's what and I'm hoping that eventually we get to that, because that does help tremendously. We've almost got it, and it's an educational process. But as far as what the contractor does, I just want the contractor to do what they're supposed to do. That's what I'm complaining about. Not the job that they can do, but the job that they haven't done in certain situations. On the other hand, there's been a lot of stuff out there that they've done that's great. So I hope that clarifies my comments.
Director Mager.
I guess I have a lot to say, but I'm not going to, because Director Kelley says it best. But I think with what Scott said, that he's taken a personal interest in it. And yes, he's been around a year or so, but I think with the new contract, we've got some new safeguards in there. I've thought about this thing of bringing it in-house too, but with COVID and everything else, we'd be laying people off, and I don't want to get into those kind of situations. So I like the idea of them doing the grid pruning. That is definitely needed out there. Too bad we can't do the the berm too, but that's a disaster, but that's not ours. So I think the fertilizer will help. I think, I was so sorry to hear about when I read the note about the tracks out there again. I remember when that happened a few years ago, and I was like, really? I mean, I'm not a turf management person, but I've learned a whole lot in 12 years being on this board about that field, and you just don't do it. You just don't do it, no matter if it's rained or if it's been dry for 6 months. So I think they have to do a better job, but I think you've got the tools in the new contract that will make them do a better job. I want you to hold their feet to the fire, Brandon, you know, and Leah won't pay, because that's craziness, that they're not doing their job, and we're writing him a check every month. So I'm not for bringing it in-house at this point, but I think we need to move forward with the contract and make sure Scott knows that we are going to be watching. You know, Director Kelley's out there a lot. I go out once in a while to make sure that things are what I think they should be, because I was that third vote for that turf, so I do take an interest in it, so.
I remember that.
Director Malloy, Chair Malloy is
Who was that
remembering
guy that voted against it?
I was the third vote, so I do take an interest in it, so. But I think we should go ahead and give them another shot, and with all the safeguards we have in there. So I'm anxious to see how this fertilizer is going to work. And also the new aerating and coring, because I think we've only done that for, what, a year and a half?
No, aerating's always been in there.
Well, yeah, but not 11 times.
No, and three of the 11 will be a core.
Right, that's what I'm saying, you know,
You don't want more
like director, or like the general manager said, you know, we're making changes as we go along. It's going to take us a while to get there, so you'll all have gray hair like I do, so, okay? Thank you.
Okay, could you roll the slides back to the RFP process slide that starts with technical specifications? It's way back toward the beginning. First of all, I want to thank the staff for doing the legwork to get a reasonable set of bidders on this contract. Last time, we only had one company willing to bid, and I personally went out and solicited golf course management companies, because golf course management companies know how to make good turf. Golf courses are made out of hybrid Bermuda, so they know how to do this, and they're prepared, but certainly these guys have the capability to do it too. So the fact that we got a lot of bidders, it's good, and you know, based on the numbers, the number 2 bidder is not that far out of line, and if I was a Valley Crest employee participating in this tonight, I would realize that I am 1 5-day notice away from losing this business. Now, I want to say good on you, because this is what needs to happen to prevent this sort of stuff going on. I hate it when people come to me and say our parks suck. You know how I am about turf. I'm like a nut about it. I spent 10 years volunteering, taking care of 10 baseball fields on a schoolyard. So I know all these challenges. I know how hard it is. And I want to make sure that everybody understands it is really hard. It's so hard that when we built the baseball fields out at Freedom Park and the staff was taking care of them, Pony Baseball asked to have their contractor take care of them instead, and paid for it themselves and continues to. It's not easy to do for anyone with any level of expertise. It's complicated. Normal park grass grows this thick. It's called kikuyu grass. It hides everything. Sports park grass, hybrid Bermuda, is 3/8 of an inch tall. You see every little undulation, every little flaw. And the soccer ball sees it too. I played many years, I refereed many years out at Freedom Park. We're jogging the holes and going from kikuyu to blade grass. You know, we had 10 different flavors of stuff. It's a dream what we have at PV Fields. It's so much more fun for the kids. It's so much better test for everything. It's an incredible experience, but it's hard. And this is exactly what needs to happen, and you need to follow through with it, because, as you can tell, the board doesn't like having these conversations, and the community doesn't like it either. I'll remind everyone, the cost of sodding that field was an extra $445,000 as opposed to growing it from seed, which is what Director Malloy voted for. But we instantly had a very beautiful and wonderful hybrid Bermuda surface. Valley Crest had actually sodded a golf course in Newport Beach. They used that as one of their examples. They'd actually sodded you know, golf courses are about 120 acres of turf, so, you know, they've done large-scale things. But it doesn't matter how you start it. You know, when you start it, you get to play on it faster, but you still got to take care of it. It's still a living thing. It's got to be groomed. And, you know, you guys have worked over the years doing a lot of different things to try and make this thing better and better and more cost-effective, because it is expensive. But the monitoring here is key. And I would be very willing to be involved in one of those monthly inspection reviews, and you know, and I'm sure Bob would too, because, you know, this is our jewel, and we want it kept shiny. I think the idea of doing it internally is completely undoable. Oh, by the way, we're in a really tough financial position. We can't afford to go from 300,000 or 263,000 to 900,000 in the first year. It's simply not possible. It also commits us to continuing to do it over the long term, which doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense either. The private sector has the expertise, and they're much more cost-effective about how they do things. That's just how it is. We could look at a lot of things we do and make it less of the private sector, but that's not on the agenda, and it's not going to be on the agenda. The agenda is to get this park taken care of. And I'm glad that we have a second bid that's reasonable, but I'm ready to support awarding the contract to Valley Crest, but they need to understand, they need to deliver. Because I'm personally really disappointed that all these months without play, I just dreamed of having Thanksgiving weekend where I could work on the baseball field without a tournament. To have 8 months with no play, the things that could have been done to this, it's unfortunate that it hasn't happened for us. I'm sure the turf is thickened up, as you mentioned. That's the nature of it. This time of the year, it gets thin. Hybrid Bermuda goes mostly dormant in the winter, so now's not a great time to fix things. Spring and summer is when that turf grows. But I'm comfortable with awarding the contract for 3 years. But like I say, I'm leaving it on staff to make sure that it gets taken care of, because this is a management problem. And that's all I have. So unless anybody else has any other comments, or we'll need a motion.
I had one non-turf related question. I was looking at the softball field setup, and it's about 40,000, 48,000, and 49,000, and I was kind of surprised that it gets done 26 times a month. Is that pretty standard? Is that
Yes.
also, I mean,
It's-
that's also
it's
something
going
we're
through our data,
monitoring?
through the history of the sports program. The sports coordinator pulled all those numbers, so yeah, it's about an average of 26 to 28 times a month. It's 6 days a week usually.
All right, thank you.
It's once a day before each day with games, basically, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
basically,
you have to-
they drag them no matter what.
A lot of people use our parks when we're not using them.
Yes.
So when you're going to have a game, you've got to have it dragged smooth, the foul lines lined, the holes filled in, et cetera. So
You know, I want to end this, thank you for your questions and everything, but just one thing to quick say, grass is grown by the inch and killed by the foot. Thank you.
okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve and award the contract agreement between the district and Brightview Landscape Services Incorporated for landscape maintenance and janitorial services at Pleasant Valley Field Sports Complex.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Please call the roll.
Director Magner,
Aye.
Director Kelley,
Aye.
Director Dransfeld? That's a no? That's a no? Correct. Director Roberts
No.
and Chairman Malloy.
Aye. Okay, motion carries 3-2. 8B, maturity of 2016 5-year certificates of deposit.
Good evening, Director or Chairman Malloy, members of the board. Tonight I'm going to bring to you two CDs. Back in 2015, the Board of Directors purchased 5 CDs, and these are the last 2 of the CDs that have come due. They'll be coming due February of 2021, next month, and we need to make a decision, or the board does, as what our options are, which I will get to later in the presentation. And these are Quimby funds, which is also known as our park dedication fees. So these are restricted funds. And we either have the option to reinvest the CDs with MBS, multi-bank securities, or into another bond, or into one of our other 2 options, which would be Ventura County Pool or PAC West, which is our Quimby account. Currently, the district uses Pacific Western Bank, which is a local bank, for our operational funds. The district uses the Ventura County Pool, the local agency of investment funds up in Sacramento, also known as LATE, and MBS for our excess funds. In February of 16, the district purchased 2 5-year CDs, each at $200,000, one with a 1.7 interest rate and the other at 1.950. Again, the district can either take the funds out of MBS or roll them into one of our other investment options. The district is allowed to invest up to 40% of their total investment portfolio in a single type. The California Department of Investment and Advisory Council allows the district to invest in a CD, but it cannot exceed 5 years. And at this moment, the district can invest up to 684 into investments. And these 2 CDs equate to $400,000 with MBS. So when we started this back in 2016, and I apologize, I misspoke earlier, I said 15, we did the ladder approach with our CDs. As you can see, we did a 1, a 2, 4, and then 2 5-year CDs. These 1, 2, and 4-year CDs have come due, and the board has chosen to withdraw the CDs and invest them into another means of our investment portfolio. So I'm coming to you this evening with the bottom 2 CDs to ask which route you would like me to go. There it goes. Okay, as of this morning, this is the investment option or the percentage rates for the CDs. You can see they're very low, primarily due to COVID. So you have your option between a 3 and a 6 month, a 1, 2, 3, and a 5-year. And then our 2 investment options are using the Ventura County Pool, and that currently, as of, they do their interest rate for the month. So I won't know January until February 1st. So this is their December interest rate, which is 0.518. And then we also have a little bit of money in Pacific Western Bank, which is 0.05. So these are your 3 options: going with MBS with a CD, Ventura County Pool, or using Pacific Western Bank, the Quimby account. So there is no direct fiscal impact to the budget. The impact is to what kind of earnings we use in interest to reinvest or to spend on projects to benefit the community. So on December 16th, the Finance Committee met. I brought these options with, at that time, the current interest rates to the committee, and the committee's recommendation was for me to bring this item to the full board for discussion and final action. And again, you have the 3 options: reinvest with MBS, choosing one of those CDs that I mentioned, go with Pacific Western Bank, or move the money to the Ventura County Pool. So, any questions for me?
Could you go back to the interest rates page?
Sure.
Yeah,
Oh, right, I'm sorry,
that's the
right there.
magic one there. Now, in your packet, in the finance report, you'll see charts for the last year, what all these different rates did. So you can get a sense for what the trend is. And if you watch the news and watch finance, you know that interest rates are at all-time record lows. So that's why the long-term interest rates are so poor. And as the only member in December of the Finance Committee, I didn't feel like it made any sense to make a recommendation when the numbers are so obvious that it makes no sense to tie ourselves down to any length of time commitment when the best rate is a short-term rate that we can literally have our money tomorrow. Also knowing that we're going into our long-range plan, or our goal setting, and we're going to get an idea of what our cash needs are. Obviously, when you have immediate access to the cash, it gives us a lot more flexibility as to what we can do with it. In previous years, it made more sense because we weren't planning to use the money immediately, and as you saw, the interest rates were significantly higher than it made sense. But at the current time, there's virtually nobody buying long-term investments because of that. So to use a term that I don't like in the context of the district, but this is truly a no-brainer. There's really no other reasonable option. And Ventura County Fund has consistently outpaced all of the LAIF fund through the state of California and other, short-term availability instruments. Any questions? Go ahead.
You knew I was going to say something,
Yeah, absolutely.
because I don't like what we've done in the past, but why did MBS go up, and how come Ventura went down?
MBS go up right now, or?
Well, the numbers you have up there are higher than the ones you gave us in the packet.
Correct. That was the day that I wrote that staff report, and then this is this morning's numbers.
Okay, and I can live with
Okay.
that. But the numbers up there are higher for MBS and lower for Ventura.
Okay, the one, I believe what's in your staff report is the November interest rate, because I did not have the December one at that time, because that was not released until January 1st. I'm sorry, Elaine, am I?
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Okay, that's okay. MBS went up, but Ventura went down.
Okay, I would have to contact Peter Yanez, our contact for MBS, to find out what happened in the market to make the CDs go up, and I would need to contact the pool to see what their portfolio is doing and how, and I don't know what their investment, what agencies they're using or tools they're using to decipher their interest rates. I would need to make some phone calls tomorrow.
Okay, because what I'm seeing is, I follow this religiously, but I've not noticed that to be happening with everything that's been happening with the market and everything. But now all of a sudden, Ventura's going down and MBS is going up. And I know it's 2 or 3 cents, I understand that. And I think we're going to see more after January 20th, but one way or the other. But I'm not sure, I have no problem moving it to Ventura Pool for now to see what happens, because it is marginally higher and it's easier to get to. And I'm like Chairman Malloy, that we've got goal setting coming up, are we going to spend this money? Or what are we going to do with it? So I just find it interesting that it's a little different than what the track has been. So
What I can do in the morning is I can touch base with both entities, and then email the 5 of you to let you know what,
I don't think
what the
there's,
tools are or what their components are that drive the interest rates, because I really am sorry, I don't have the information
Yeah.
for the Ventura County pool.
I don't see a need for that, Leo, because Ventura County is so much higher right now, so.
Okay. I'm more than happy to do it.
I just was curious why all of a sudden we've got a flop. So I expect you to be our investment officer too, Leo.
I'll do better.
I'm sorry. That's all I have.
Any other questions? Director Dransfeldt, you have any questions? No? Okay. Leo, you must have done a great job. Everyone has no questions. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to move the funds to the Ventura County pool with the, whatever the interest rate is when we move it, so,
It'll be on February 12th.
okay, on February 12th.
I second.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Director Magner,
Aye.
Director Roberts,
Aye.
Director Kelley,
Yes.
Director Dransfeldt,
Aye.
Chairman Malloy.
Aye. Okay, item C, consideration of resolution number 664, accepting Quimby fees for residential plan development RPD 205TT 6017/CUP 405/CZ 330 to mitigate impacts. Looks like Anthony will be explaining it all to us.
I will not accept responsibility for that subject. I'm going to pawn that one off on the city of Camarillo. So, good evening, directors. Good evening, Chairman. And as you just mentioned, this staff report is in regards to consideration of Resolution 664, which will accept Quimby fees in lieu of park space for the planned development at the old stock building supply, which is at 2800 Berry Street. So project details on this particular site is they're building or planning to build 60 apartments available for rent, 8 townhomes for sale, and it's on 2.5 acres and it's expected to house approximately 180 residents. This will include rezoning the area from industrial to high-density residential, RPD 30U. And the subdivision of the townhomes will trigger triggers the Quimby Act, which is why we are discussing this tonight. So a little bit of background on this. When the Quimby Act is triggered, the city is required to submit plans to affected agencies when there is any kind of development within the city limits that will potentially impact other agencies. The district was notified due to the subdivision that it is subject to the Quimby Act, like I said, and on November 10th, city staff presented the fee calculation to myself and to the general manager, and with 2 assumptions included. And one was that a full 30% credit for provided open space within the development would be applied, and a $9.52 per square foot valuation for the property. Now, those 2 items are important coming into the calculation of the fee, which is why they were presented to the staff. Now, staff has the right to question those assumptions, and the city is required to meet and confer with the district and the developer to discuss what exactly should be assumed or what is appropriate at this point in time. So we deemed that the valuation for the property was adequate, as it was the exact same valuation as another project just down the street, same industrial zoning, same style of project development. And the 30% developer credit was something that we would like to discuss a little further. Now, the city staff did go through the process of how they calculated that, and I have included it in our presentation here as to what they've done, so I'll explain that in a little bit. But essentially, what the city does to determine whether or not a developer is going to receive that 30% credit is they make a calculation based on the amount of park space they're required to provide with each development. And this is where we get a little wonky here a little bit, but the city and the district, well, I should say the city's general plan requires that new developments provide 5 acres of park space per 1,000 residents. So this project is, while it's only anticipated to serve 180 residents, it needs to provide 5 acres of park space to serve that in proportion to the 180 residents. So the district in general operates 256 acres of park space, which means, according to the city of Camarillo's population in total, we're about 93 acres short. So for every new development the city approves, we should be receiving in some way, shape, or form an in lieu fee to help provide for that park space, or park space to help alleviate that shortage. Some developments are rather small, like this one, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily make much sense for them to set aside park space, so they more often than not try to provide an in lieu fee. So that's what the Quimby Act is for. The Quimby Act mitigates development impact on the park system through park space or in lieu fees. And the fee is calculated through the following formula. There's a few steps here, so bear with me, please. The 68 total units that are provided, they assume 2.64 people per household. So you're 180 persons. So that's your first step, calculate the number of anticipated residents. Second step, calculate the total parkland requirement. So at 5 acres per 1,000 people, you'll get 217.8 square feet per person. So 217.8 square feet per person times 180, which means this development should have 39,204 square feet of park space provided for those residents. Private shared recreational space credit is then calculated, and it is limited by the city ordinance at 30% of the maximum amount of park space, 30% of the amount of park space that is to be provided. So the developer, according to the development's plans, is providing 13,209 square feet of private recreational space, and this is what the district staff questioned the city on. The 30% of this number here, 39,204, is 11,761 square feet. So because the developer is providing slightly more than that number, the city is allowing them the 30% maximum credit towards their park space or their fee calculation. Now, I know if we have any questions, I can always obviously revisit this, but I'm going to keep on going through the calculation to finish it up here. So at this point, the city is providing them the 30% credit to determine the amount of square footage to be mitigated, and that is 39,204 minus 11,761, and it gets you 27,443 square feet. We then move on, and this is the last page of calculations, I promise. We multiply the area mitigated by the fair market value, $9.52 a square foot, times the amount that we just calculated, and that comes out to $261,257. We calculate a public improvements portion of the fee, which is 20% of that value there. So what happens is if the district receives this money and we build a park with it, they add in 20%, so that way we can do things like stub up irrigation, sewage, et cetera, things along those lines. That amount is then added to the original calculation here, and that, by determining the final fee amount, by adding those two previous values together, you get $313,508. Now, the city did walk the district staff through this process to our satisfaction. So we then wanted to analyze, okay, so at this point, what makes more sense for the district, a fee versus park space? Now, in this case, the fee is preferable, in staff's opinion, fee is preferable to land. Space requirement is only 27,443 square feet. While the development is supposed to provide about 39,000 total, when you subtract the amount of space that they are providing, what's left is that amount of square footage here. There is no immediately available space nearby, and part of the Quimby Act's requirements is that space would be set aside for the district's purchase at a future date, which would mean the district would have to expend a certain amount of money to purchase that land, but it would be reserved through the developer's process. However, at 27,443 square feet, that plot of land would likely be much more expensive than what would typically be considered adequate, or we consider affordable on the district's behalf, especially in this particular portion of town, as it's a very heavily developed area. And the fees offer more flexibility of use going forward. We can provide new facilities and purchase new park space with the fees, in addition to improving certain community-wide facilities as well. So the fiscal impact of this action is the district staff is recommending that we accept a $313,508 in lieu fee payable upon the recording of the final map or parcel map, or at the earlier of the city's final inspection or the city's issuance of the certificate of occupancy. This is a little flexible. It's paid at, we've received fees at multiple different times, which is why there's a wide range of language here. But more often than not, the developer essentially has the check ready to go almost upon commencement of construction, and they have to pay this fee before the city signs off on the final approvals. And the recommendation at this point is that the Board of Directors approve Resolution Number 664, accepting a Quimby fee in the amount of $313,508 in lieu of parkland in conjunction with the city's potential approval of the proposed development at 2800 Berry Street. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Director Dransfeldt.
Thank you, Anthony. Just one question out of curiosity. On step number 6, calculate the public improvements portion, is 20% the standard, or is there a way that that's calculated?
20% is an agreed upon percentage between the city and the district. It used to be 10% actually until about, I want to say, a year ago or so, and the district negotiated a higher rate with the city. There isn't actually a standard percentage here between agencies. It varies rather wildly. And we found when it comes to developing parks, for example, relative to this development, for example, you can use Mel Vincent, for example, the actual park improvements, the cost required to lay down infrastructure for that park were in excess of the 10% cost of what was the original fee that was calculated for that particular park. So it actually cost more than 10% to do the improvements, so we came back to the city and said, hey, can you guys consider doing a higher fee percentage here, and they agreed to it.
Thanks.
Okay. Elaine?
I don't like the 30%.
We didn't either initially, actually.
What do you mean
We discussed it.
initially?
So go ahead, Mary.
Please, Mary, tell me.
So initially if you remember a couple of years ago, so this has been something prior to the current city manager, Dave and I had been working on for a while. So once again, this kind of varies across the board with the 30% for private shared space. So you have some agencies that say that you don't get any credit for private shared space. So meaning when you look at private shared space, it really means it's for private, and so everybody doesn't get to use it. So we actually had a conversation with the city because at one point it was 50%. So we went from 50%, they were giving credit at 50% down to 30%, saying that they still should, a developer still should get credit because they still are putting either open space, trails, whatever in, and different amenities in those areas and should get credit. So for instance, I'll give you two different instances. One over at Springville, even though we have a park over there, that area also has a pool and has some smaller tot lots. So they get credit for putting those things in. If you look up at St. John's Seminary with that new project, they're putting walking trails, pickleball courts, and a whole slew of things in. So our conversation with the city has been, that's great, and that's great amenity for those members, but if I'm outside those gates or walls, then the public can't use it, so it's limited. So that's how we were able to go from 50% down to 30%, because the other assumption is everybody that are housed there will still be using our other parks. So that's been part of the conversation that we've been going back and forth with, and landed on the 30%, which also had to be approved through city council as well.
Well, thank you for the explanation, but I find it hard to believe in that space that they're going to provide 30%, unless that's going to be a swimming pool on the roof or a track on the roof or something. I find that real hard to believe on that space in that neighborhood that they're going to get. I just don't see it happening, Mary.
So they have some green space, and I don't have the plans with us, but they have green space. They also have a small community center that you also get credit for. So it's a combination.
Oh, okay, I missed that, okay.
So it's also recreation, so it doesn't just have to be a park or green space. So
And the
they've got
closeness to El Tocolote.
and
No credit. No credit.
No credit for that one.
To actually to build on what Mary just said a little bit, the 13,209 square feet was outlined to us in plans rather interestingly. They actually just took a highlight and they drew a circle around it. So we asked, in the future going forward, we've asked for slightly more detailed plans because a highlighter mark on the page doesn't really cut it for us. And actually, in the 13,209 square feet is actually is physically green space within the plan. So I've seen it, and the general manager's seen it, and I can tell you with authority there that it actually is within the plans. However, they did not include the square footage of the actual rec center that they're building in as part of the buildings. So there's still some wrinkles to be worked out, I think, on the city side when it comes to working with their developers as to what they're going to count and what's not going to count. It wouldn't have mattered in this case had they included the square footage or not, because they were already over the 30% threshold. So they would have received the maximum amount. If, according to the city's calculations, they would have already received the maximum amount. So even if they added the extra 2,000, 3,000 square foot rec center, it wouldn't matter.
Okay. All right. Well, you gave it a run for its money. That's what I wanted to hear. So I remember in the days when we got next to nothing. So I think you did a good job in doing this. So.
Good. Any other questions? Sure. Okay. Comments? No comments? No comment? Okay. Well, I'll comment briefly. And this is like a really great lesson for you because you never know you signed up for this, but this is amongst the things that we do. And the city's aware that we are under-resourced on parkland. In fact, Councilman Tremblay cited the lack of park space coming with the Camino Ruiz project when he voted against it, voted against considering it. So they're very aware that we're well under what we're supposed to be on space. This particular project is a low-income housing project, and keeping the costs of the project down is really important in making the project happen. So, there's some goals that aren't PVRPD goals, but they're important community goals that we need to be aware of. It isn't a particularly good spot to put a public park. And I think them allocating that amount of space for internal recreation is a great thing. And I'm looking forward to seeing this project happen. It's something that the community needs. So certainly, we can do something with the money. It's not a really substantial amount of money that allows us to go out and build something. Because as you know, or as you find out, where we just spent $900,000 to take care of a park for 3 years, things are expensive here. We do things on a really large scale and when you do it to government standards, it's really expensive. So, I'd always like to have more, but the process that's going on of the city understanding our needs and working toward it and listening to our concerns and working with us, that's a really good thing. And I'm happy to see that this is how that came out. So if there's no other comments, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 664, accepting a Quimby fee in the amount of $313,508 in lieu of parkland in conjunction with the city's potential approval of the proposed development at 2800 Berry Street.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Director Magner?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Kelley? Director Dransfeldt?
Aye.
Chairman Malloy?
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, 8D, updated job description and salary schedule for part-time restricted mechanic. General Manager Otten.
I almost look like Catherine.
No, you don't.
No, she's a little shorter,
It-
I'm a little
It
taller.
just struck me that she wasn't in the room. I'm like, how's this going to work? So,
So Catherine is on the line. Confirm that, Catherine? She's now on mute. I see how she is. She had a sick child today, so you get me instead.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Just checking, making sure you weren't sleeping or something.
Yeah, no, I've been following along.
Mary Otten, General Manager, presenting So we have here, if I can get, apparently you have to do it just right. So what we had is in 2019, we had a full-time mechanic retired. And so currently, we, as a district, are evaluating and analyzing the scope of the job and the range of responsibilities. So what happened when he retired, and as we were starting to look at a lot of stuff, we were also looking at how much stuff we were taking out, how much in-house stuff we were doing as part of that. So as we've been going through this, we've met with Personnel Committee, and we've also met with SEIU, Local 721. And so we met in the spring of 2020 to discuss the need to fill this as a temporary full-time mechanic and also look at a part-time job and to see what this looks like. So we want to make sure that when we're doing this, we make sure that if we need a full-time position, what that looks like, what kind of tools, all of those things. So we want to make sure that we do that right. We also want to make sure that due to COVID, we were unable to get a fair assessment of what this position looks like, knowing that right now, with the last 8-9 months, 10 months, 12 months, whatever we're going on right now with COVID, is that we wanted to make sure that we were assessing it fairly. Knowing that, yes, we know that the parks are still getting maintained, we know those things are happening, but we also know that there's been downtime in some of those other things, so we want to make sure that we're assessing it correctly. So in saying that, December 2020, we once again met with SEIU to have a conversation to discuss adding a position for part-time mechanic to the salary schedule, because right now we don't have a part-time mechanic that is on there. Fortunately, for the last 6 months, we had hired somebody that was working as a grounds 1-2 as a part-time, and he was a retired mechanic from one of the Chevy, from Paradise. So he decided after he retired, he didn't want to really retire, so he came back, so we've been using him, and we've been working with SEIU on that. So part of the analysis right now is we're going to bring back or add a part-time restricted mechanic, and I'll kind of go through that. The duties of this position will not change from the full-time mechanic. The hourly rate for the part-time mechanic will remain in line with the full-time position to allow the district to recruit qualified candidates. So what you'll see up here is we have, just to make sure everybody knows the differences, so a part-time restricted is a temporary employee who works less than 980 hours per fiscal year. A full-time regular scheduled employee is works 80 hours or more in a 2-week period, or works 80 hours per year, and a part-time year-round is an employee who works between 1,560 hours and 1,700 hours per year and is eligible for prorated benefits. So what we're talking about tonight is the part-time restricted, adding that to the salary schedule, so that way we can make sure that it's on the salary schedule so we can hire that position. So currently, the district has budgeted $37,000 for the full-time position on the mechanic. So when we went through the whole budget process back July, when we were going into this, originally what we had looked at was that we were going to keep a part-time and then relook at it in January, and look at that again, and look at potentially hiring somebody from now until June. So what we'll be able to do is actually save some money, and this will depend on how many hours we need the part-time mechanic. So right now, that person has been able to come in, take care of business. If we have to shuttle out for some of the larger items like engines, some of that kind of work, then that's what we do. But we've been able to keep a lot more stuff in-house, and so we're trying to track that. So this number, this 30,000, will depend on how many hours that person works. So that's a rough estimate depending on the number of hours. So what the recommendation is tonight is recommended the board approve the job description and salary schedule for a part-time restricted mechanic, so we can make sure that we can get that on the salary schedule and we can hire somebody for that position. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and if I've left anything out, Catherine's on standby for backup.
Any questions?
I just had one. Do we have a full-time mechanic currently, or are we just, what happens when we have something that breaks down?
So we have a part-time person right now. So what we worked out with SEIU is the person that was in a position as a part-time maintenance. So what that person did and what we worked out with SEIU in an agreement is we would pay them for the full-time wage for a mechanic, and he was working part-time. So that person has been working part-time on and off for about 8 months or so. Is that about right, Bob? 6 months, 6 to 7 months. Part-time, but what we need to do is to get this salary schedule on the docket to make sure that it's legitimate, that we don't have any issues, and make sure that we take care of our employees.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Dransfeldt.
Will this be reevaluated post-pandemic? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So what the goal is right now is it gives us, we've been starting to do some evaluation, so what this will give us is a little bit more, so as we go into the spring. So like questions that we're asking the current mechanic is, do we have for the jobs that we're doing, do we have the materials, do we have the skill level, do we have what you need to get these jobs done? So we can compare and find out, does this need to be a full-time job? Does it need to be a part-time restricted? Does it need to be a 3/4 time position? So we're trying to evaluate all of that to make sure that whatever we do, that we can look at it for future.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Magner.
I'm on the Personnel Committee, and we had a discussion regarding this. And I think you need to explain, Mary, that if we decide to go full-time, that the person could apply, or we would decide at that time how we're going to fill it at that time. But we'll make sure that on the announcement for this position, because it's not in the position description, that it is part-time limited or restricted, whatever that terminology is now.
So we have the gentleman that's in this position right now. If he chooses to stay, then this would be a part of that. If he chooses not to stay and decided that he wants to truly retire, then we would go out for a job announcement like we typically do for a part-time position. If we were to make this and decided that we did the evaluation and it would be full-time, just like we've done with all our other employees, they could also apply for this position as well, which to me is helpful because then we can find out what that person's work ethic is, and they kind of know what the job looks like and some of those things. From my understanding, this person isn't interested in a full-time job, but likes to still have a part-time job, is doing a great job, has been helping us along the way. So that's kind of where we're at with this position right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I need a motion. Let me make it easy. I need a motion for the board to approve the job description and salary schedule for part-time restricted mechanic.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Director Magner? Aye. Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Kelley? Aye. Director Dransfeldt? Aye. Chairman Malloy?
Aye. Okay. 8E, consideration of new date for February 2021 regular board meeting.
Oops, turns out I left. I'm back with the exciting ones tonight. All right. The City of Camarillo cannot provide the council chambers for the February 3rd regular meeting. However, the district has the opportunity to reschedule for the following day or move the meeting to a new location on the same date. A new date would require a board action. However, moving the meeting to a new location would not. Here are the details. Following day of the 4th is available. Audio, video, TV is available. Moving the date would require a vote. Changing the location doesn't require a vote, but we wouldn't have video or a public TV channel broadcast our meeting as we normally do. And audio would still be recorded via our conference call. However, we would not have, like I said, a video to go along with that. So people could follow along if they called in, but would not have the ability to watch the meeting. So staff's recommendation is to discuss and vote to change the February meeting date to the following day, or Thursday, if that works with the board's schedules, or direct staff to prepare a different location for the same date. And with that, I'll take questions.
Is the next Wednesday open?
We can follow up and ask. We simply ask for the following date just to provide you guys with with the board with an option. But we can follow up with the city and ask if the following Wednesday.
My schedule's already set for the other evenings. I set my schedule specifically so I can do Wednesday. So if it's possible to do it the next Wednesday would be most favorable to me.
Typically, the city council meets this, so what happened, typically, city council meets the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. So due to COVID, the first Wednesday in February is their board goal setting. So they have in the past met over at the library. And since they can't meet over at the library due to the fact that they publicize it, they have to meet here on that Wednesday. So that's why they're changing it.
So does that mean the next Wednesday is not open?
That is correct. Long story short, that would be correct.
Yeah, 10th and 24th are their dates. Yeah. Anybody else, any input?
No.
I mean, we could do the meeting at our place, though, just like we always used to, right?
I was just going to say that I would prefer to do it when we do have the video and participation available.
So to be
So
clear,
to do it on
we
the
have
phone.
audio participation that would still be available. The phone would be available, obviously. However, we just wouldn't be able to follow along, like I said, visually. The materials that we present for all the board members and the board packets would still be available via the website, as they always are.
Director Maker?
I've already changed my schedule for the 4th, but so I can go whatever we decide to do. February is not bad for me, so.
Okay, so the 4th will work for you, and it works
Yeah,
for me.
the 4th will now work for me,
I'm
so.
that semi-retired guy, so the 4th will
Well,
work for me.
I thought I was, but I'm not.
Are you not available on the 4th, Director Kelley?
I could switch things around. I don't want to, but I could.
I agree that having what we do here on TV is a real value to the community, and I would really like to see
All
us
right.
stick with the 4th.
Okay.
So do I have a motion to move the meeting to the 4th?
I move that we move the meeting to February 4th.
And I'll second it. Please call the roll.
Director Dransfeldt,
Aye.
Chairman Malloy,
Aye.
Director Magner,
Aye.
Director Kelley, Director Roberts.
Aye.
Mary, would you make sure that the girls in my office get?
Okay, item F, board goal setting discussion. Planning of the 2021 board goal setting workday.
So I know that Jessica's been working with everybody, going back and forth and trying to work with the consultant that'll be helping us. So I think we finally got the date, which will be Saturday, January 23rd at 9 a.m. We've been going back and forth between that date and the 27th. So Saturday, January 23rd will be the date for that meeting. I will be working with Brent Ives, and so what he will be doing is calling each one of you to get input on goals and such, so we can have a robust conversation. He will also be talking to management staff as well, so that way we can lay it all out. So as we get that, I'll have Jess kind of work with people to make sure that we can kind of get availability so Brent knows when to call, and it'll be a Zoom, so you can do it right from Zoom or a phone call. So that's kind of what we have going on. I'm working at that.
Haven't we worked with,
We have. We've worked with
see
Brent.
that guy from up north?
Yep.
Oh, I remember him.
So
9 o'clock?
9 o'clock on Saturday, and I'll have Jessica will send out an email tomorrow as well as an appointment.
Will he be in person, or is he going to be on Zoom?
He'll be on Zoom due to COVID, So a couple options. I know in the past what we've done is we've had everybody in room 6 and then we can bring him up. Or we can do it the other way where if people want to do it from Zoom, they can do it from their house, or actually it's WebEx, which is exactly like that, if that's an option for people as well.
Does he use Zoom or does he use Microsoft Teamwork?
Well, we have, so one of the things that the district has as part of this, sorry, as I'm
That's okay.
dodging in and out of Karen, we have WebEx, which is exactly like Zoom, it's just a different program. It's a little bit more secure. We're using it tonight, so it also has capability for both sound, video, and such. So it's just a matter of downloading the app. So if people want to do it from their house and their computers, there is that capability to do it from there as well. So, and I can follow up with everybody regarding that as well.
That's excellent, because it make it a lot more cost-effective for us to be able to do it with him on Zoom, because he lives a long ways from here, so there'll be a lot of expenses involved, so.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, the last time we did this, I believe, was 2012, when we had two new board members join the board, so. He's excellent. He's a former city manager and done a lot of training stuff, and he's really good at this. He's really good at this. Okay. Item G, board committee assignments. One of the few perks of the job of chair is to name the board committees, and I do that based on, to the best of my knowledge of your background and understanding and time availability and interest, and I jumble everything up and I come up with the best assignments that I think are in the district's interest. Typically, it doesn't make everybody or even a majority of people happy, but I do the best I can and try and share the workload and help the district move forward. The first one is a liaison committee with the city of Camarillo. That'll be Director Magner and Director Malloy. And the second one is a liaison committee with Pleasant Valley School District, and that'll be Director Dransfeldt and Director Malloy. Finance will be Directors Malloy and Roberts. Long-range planning will be Directors Dransfeldt and Roberts. Personnel will be Directors Magner and Kelley. Policy will be Directors Malloy and Kelley. And ad hoc for pickleball will be Directors Dransfeldt and Magner. Now, there's 3 outside committees that the district has, sort of service jobs. The first one is the California Special Districts Association, and of course, we have the vice president on our board, so that's Director Magner. The second one is Ventura County Special Districts Association, which is the task I will handle. And the third one is Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. Now, we've had a director regularly attend Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy meetings since I started attending board meetings in 1996. I've never felt like there's a huge amount of value to it in the district. It's kind of like going to a trade show. You talk to hundreds of people and you hope that like 3 of them turned into really good customers, and you have no idea that you're going to hit 3 or 1 or none or 8. So you go to the show and you see how it works out. Director Mishler has been doing this since he joined the board. He replaced Director Rockenstein, who had done it for many years. It involves driving to Los Angeles to a lot of boring and tedious meetings. But it also keeps you up to date on what's going on Southern California-wise in the big recreational picture, and it is a value of having that information available to us. So I'm basically asking for a volunteer to do this. We have a volunteer. I'm a great salesman, and I am very happy. I'm very happy Director Dransfeldt wants to do that. So, yes. Let the record reflect that she volunteered, and that's great. So, add that to the list. And Karen, I have a list of these for you, so I can give it to you after the meeting. So move on to 9, informational items. And we start with me. I don't get to go with the rest of the folks. I guess I do mine first. And I typically start with a list of the meetings and things that I did in the last month related to the district. And the first one in December was the VCSDA Zoom meeting on December 1st. And that's a good time for me to remind you that on the 12th, which is next Tuesday, we're going to have another really brief meeting to review a request to the county to give help to the special districts to offset our COVID-19 expenses, which up until now we've seen nothing. And typically when there's a disaster like a fire, we get really substantial reimbursement of our costs. So that'll be, I'm sure you got email on it. We had a regular board meeting on the 3rd. We had our reorganization meeting on the 4th because the county couldn't certify the results in time for the regular board meeting. So we got them on the 4th and we reorganized our board on the 4th. PVRPD had a really interesting webinar on December 10th. As you've all noticed, there's more and more chances to get educated and become up to speed online on a huge variety of topics. And I've never been involved in CARPD before, and it was very interesting. And then, of course, we discussed the Christmas parade December 12th, and then Finance Committee on December 16th. The one other item I want to mention is that in last week's ACORN, they erroneously reported that the district will be going to district-based elections in the next election cycle. No decision related to district-based elections have been made, nor can they be discussed. Governor Newsom's Executive Order N34-2, issued on March 4th, states the timeframes of conducting hearings required to do so are suspended until such time as neither state nor local health officials recommend or impose social distancing measures in the relevant subdivision. I have a copy of it in case anybody wants to read the executive order. But basically, it doesn't appear at all imminent that social distancing requirements will be relaxed, and so that's sometime into the future. As you all know, on May 6th, an attorney for a group in Santa Monica sent a letter to the district regarding violation of the California Voting Rights Act. This was done after and in knowledge that the state had suspended all actions related to that and that we could take no actions. However, the timing of this letter was an attempt to get us to agree to this based on the Court of Appeals ruling on his case with the city of Santa Monica, a case that took place shortly after that letter. In April of 2016, the plaintiffs, the Pico Neighborhood Association, represented by Mr. Shakeman, filed a complaint in the California Superior Court objecting to at-large elections in the city of Camarillo, or city of Santa Monica. Few cities have the financial resources to fight these cases, so most of them, like the city of Camarillo, agree to go to districts and hire demographers to help round up the boundaries. Santa Monica chose to defend their at-large voting. A lengthy trial began on August 1st, 2018. Remember, the action started in 16. The case started in 18 and ended on October 15th. Six-week court. And then on February 15th, 2019, the court trial ruled in favor of the plaintiffs. City appealed a month later, and on March 18th, the Court of Appeal temporarily stayed the order to require Santa Monica to conduct district-based elections. The three-judge Court of Appeal issued its ruling on this issue on July 9th, reversing the trial court, awarding costs to the city. On October 21st, the California Supreme Court granted the plaintiff's request for review and ordered the parties to brief the following issue. What must a plaintiff prove in order to establish vote dilution under the California Voting Rights Act? Plaintiff's opening brief was filed with the court 2 weeks ago, December 21st, and the city of Santa Monica's is due March 22nd. The timeline for when the Supreme Court will issue a decision in this case will depend on how long thereafter the court sets oral arguments. Since oral argument is held and the court takes the case under submission, it has 90 days wish to issue an opinion. Once the Supreme Court decision is issued, agencies will have guidance on the voter demographics required for district-based elections to prevent vote dilution under the CVRA. So how does this affect us? As I stated earlier, any future discussion can't begin until the social distancing orders are gone. That's at least months, possibly a year more away. Population data needed to determine district boundaries and future actions will have to be based on the 2020 census. Agencies that have gone to districts already will have to adjust their borders with the new census data. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's website, 2020 census data for counties, population by age, sex, race, and Hispanic origin is scheduled to be available in June 2021. The rules for determining which agencies must change to district-based elections will be determined by the Supreme Court during their review of the Santa Monica case. There are so many things that have to happen before this issue comes to this board that no district decisions on voting can be made until all these pieces are in place. So this is really complicated, and I understand how the Acorn could get it wrong because all of the other special districts in the town have agreed to go to districting, but we're in limbo at the present moment and for the foreseeable future. That's all I have.
Mark, I just have one further. The Supreme Court, state Supreme Court also has the option of granting itself an extension of time beyond the 90 days. It could be a year before they issue an opinion, or longer.
Yeah, as I read through this lengthy thing, and I combined, this thing was 4 pages when I started it, and I honed it down to 2 because there's so much process and so much procedure to make sure everybody gets treated fairly. It really, I mean, it's gone on from 2016, and it's going to go into 2021, some distance. So, 9B, Ventura County Special District Association and California Special District Association.
I think you reported on Ventura County, but we've got.
We actually reported on the last month's meeting because it was
Okay.
the night before.
There's nothing other than we've got the upcoming meeting coming up on the 12th.
Okay.
So, for special districts, or for California Special Districts Association, I attended meetings via Zoom and teleconferences about every day or every week last month. I told them, aren't we on vacation for December? But I guess not. The latest update for everyone is to there are 7 states right now that have formed the National Special Districts Coalition, and they have been active in working at the federal level with the getting CARES additional money from Congress. We as a board, CSDA as a board, voted to approve for the CEO of CSDA to move forward with the other national or state associations to put out a contract for federal advocacy. And so the RFP was sent out. We got 13 proposals. They interviewed 3 firms. They selected a joint proposal by the Ferguson Group and the Paragon Government Relations Group. And we should have a final decision tomorrow as we have a 11 o'clock meeting. So I would assume we will have made our selection for who the federal advocacy contract will be awarded to, and let everybody know at the next meeting. We approved the staff objectives for next year, and it'll go to the full board when we meet later this month. Professional development is really moving forward, and I think what you need to know is that all of the webinars, since we are a member of CSDA, all of the webinars are now free of charge, and Mary's going to talk further on that, I believe. Am I correct? Okay, all right. The board has made, or the executive board of CSDA has made the decision that the 2021 SDR May Spring Education Day in March will be virtual. We also decided that the Special Districts Leadership Academy Conference will be held virtually in 4 different modules over multiple days in March, April, and May. In May, special districts do a visit to Sacramento, which we called Legislative Days, and it's scheduled for May 18th and 19th. It will be virtual also. Last year we did it virtual, and it worked out really, really well. Alex Padilla was our guest speaker, and they did it live, and it was, they have this under control. They know how to do this. So we've also worked out with all the hotels so that there's no penalties being charged. Hopefully, the GM Summit and the annual conference and the Leadership Academy and the board secretary and clerk conferences will be done by hybrid. A combination of in-person and virtual options will be available. Did we have staff attend board secretary? Jessica? But that was all virtual, wasn't it? Okay. Also, we've got my upcoming meetings will be on the 21st and 22nd. I've canceled my reservations. We'll be doing that by Zoom. And then I have also meetings on the 28th and the 29th. So I'll report on that in February to what we're doing with CSDA. But I'll turn it, when Mary comes up in GM, she will have the training for the that professional development is going to be doing and will pertain to board members.
Thank you, Elaine. Ventura County Consolidated Oversight Board Director, or former Director Mischler did mention to me that he had a report, so they probably didn't have a meeting in December. So when they do have meetings, he'll either send us a written report that we'll put in our packet, or come in and explain to us what's going on with oversight. Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, Director Dransfeldt, you ready with that report? Next month. Standing committees. Finance. The big news in finance in the last month is it was Christmas for us. We got our property tax check for December 5th. And Santa was really good to us. We were very concerned that a lot of people wouldn't be able to pay their property taxes, but they did. Our property tax revenues were up $240,000 over 2019's payments, which are really outstanding, and especially since we budgeted to get less. So we budgeted very conservatively. So that's really excellent news. Our personnel expenses are down $41,000 from last year, despite our unfunded liability payments going up $85,000. That we have to make those at the beginning of the fiscal year, so it's even better than it looks at that. Service and supplies are down $227,000 if you take out the Hill Fire expenses, and overall we're at we're on month 5, so we're at 42% of budget, and our service and supplies are at 29% of budget. So we're really, not putting on a lot of the things we normally put on, is obviously having a big savings. However, there's also big drops in revenues that are sort of starting to add up. Our contract classes, for example, we're at 14% of budgeted revenue. Public fees is at 5%, and rentals is at 20%. So a lot of our activity-related stuff is really slowing down. And the word that I hear is that more controls are coming, and it's a significant chance that the next level of stay-at-home orders are going to impact us further. But overall, we're doing really great, and I want to make a point of thanking staff, because they're the ones that have done this and really tightened the belts to make up for the fiscal crisis that we're in, that we've been put in by ourselves. Liaison. I don't believe we had any meetings. Long-range planning. We didn't have any meetings. Personnel.
We discussed it tonight.
You discussed the mechanic thing. And policy.
We did not meet.
No policy, okay. Were there any ad hoc meetings? Pickleball? Probably not, probably not. December.
I mean, unless you want to say all the phone calls and text messages that I've gotten recently.
Foundation is still on hiatus. That brings us to 9H, General Manager's Report. Mary?
Couple items. As most of you, helps if I have a mic on. So as most of you probably know, we are still with Ventura County, still in the regional stay-at-home order. So it doesn't look like we're coming out of that anytime soon. What that means for the district is we're still prohibited from doing gatherings of any sizes. You know, everybody's supposed to be wearing masks, social distancing, no indoor recreation facilities, so those still remain closed. There are still youth sports, but those are, once again, skills and drills, so that hasn't changed. When we start to go to the purple, red, and orange and yellow tiers, the state on December 15th, which I think I sent everybody a copy, that will loosen up a little bit, but you will see what that looks like, because it's very specific on which sports and when those things come to fruition. So as that starts to happen, we will once again keep everybody updated as we continue to go down this route. Other things, the audit has been completed. That was done at the end of October. That will be coming back before the board, probably February, probably more like March. So you'll see that report that will be coming back soon. As a reminder, Freedom Park is currently being used for COVID testing sites. And that will be used through March 13th out there. And it looks like they have been fairly busy since they have started, which is probably both a good thing for the county and for us, so they've been able to use that site out there. A couple things with park updates. West Coast Arborists will be working to remove and prune trees at Las Posas Equestrian Park. When you pull in, there's like 5 very large eucalyptus trees. One will be removed because it's leaning toward the house, so we want to get that before that happens, and then pruning the other ones. And then the other thing, they will be up at Charter Oaks probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Once again, looking at those, both pruning and removing, depending on what the worst trees are. So you'll see some of that happening fairly soon up there. Couple recreation updates. James Driver, who was the president for Camarillo Cougars, he will be stepping down. His boys will be hopefully playing fall football next year. COVID cooperates. So he just wanted to say thanks to the district, the board members, for always supporting the Cougars, and a few accomplishments that he had while he was here, and just saying thank you to him publicly, is he's been able to increase their savings, simplify their registration, and then adding a financial tracking system to make them stronger through the long run. So CSDA, so Karen made copies of a document that's probably sitting up there that looks like this. So the first part of the document is CSDA. The latter part is also SDMRA. So some trainings that'll be coming up is trainings for Brown Act principles, public service ethics, AB 1234, which everybody is required to take. So one of the things I will tell you is with those trainings, you have to do it 2 hours, and if you do go 1 hour and 52 minutes, it doesn't count, or you have to do it. So I know you all are intelligent people, but you still have to go for the full 2 hours. You also have in there's the sexual harassment prevention training for supervisors, which is also mandated. Most of these are in the middle part of the day. So if you can't do any of those, please let us know. Once you have done them, if you can get Anthony a copy of their certificate, you can either bring it, send it, email it, whatever, so that way what we can do is also put those up on the website. But there's a lot of different trainings in here across the board. And as Director Magner said, a lot of them are free. So feel free to go on, learn. Everybody should have a CSDA email as well as log on, and if not, you can either contact me or Anthony and we can help set it up. But so let's see. Director Malloy already talked about VCSDA and the request from the county. So there's been about 5 or 6 people that have been working to try and see if the county has any money left for part of the CARES Act. Kern County was able to give almost $2 million to special districts, knowing that we didn't qualify for any because we weren't written into the CARES Act. So we've been actually working with the CEO's office. There's about 5 or 6 of us to actually kind of proactively ask them if there's any money, if there is, what that looks like. So VCSDA, we'll go to them to ask for permission to actually look at a letter to request funds from the county, if they have any, if they should have any left. So we'll see what that looks like. I believe that's all I have currently for my updates.
Thank you, Mary. A lot going on. Your last year has been a job on top of a job.
Tracking COVID alone has been an interesting.
Yes, yes. The year before it was fires, and now it's COVID. So, oral communications. Director Kelley.
Just a couple of little things. I try to, when I see some safety issue that goes on in the community, especially if it relates to recreation, in this case, one of them does, I like to bring it up, and I'm hoping that the city will take note, and I'm hoping that anyone out there listening will get on their Facebook and pass it around and make sure that people know about it. In any event, up in near Keto Park, and I don't know why this happened, but it did, there are very few streetlights put in. And the ones that are there have practice lights in them. And any of the people who played athletics know what practice lights are. They're a weaker brand of light put in to save money or energy or what have you. And so they have this phenomenon that when you're driving along the road and you come to the light, you see the light, but the other areas around them are darker. And when you add in the human element, there are just an unbelievable number of walkers, especially right after dark and at this time when we have daylight savings, that are walking along. Now add the third element, no sidewalks. And so you come out, you see this light, which doesn't hardly light anything. It's just a small space on the ground. And then you come in, and then there's some walkers there without any reflective badges or tape or anything like that, no lighting, nothing. And they're just right there on you. And the street's narrow, and there's no sidewalk. And so sometimes their dog is walking, meandering along. And the question is not whether there's going to be an accident, it's going to be when is it going to occur. So I hope the city listens, because it's a lawsuit waiting to happen. They need to do something about that. I think they should change the lights and make the lights brighter. I don't know if that takes care of the problem. Maybe an education thing where they let the people know, don't go walking around without any, literally you see people walking with dark clothes, and when they're in that dark area right next to the light, you can't see them. So that's just an informational item. I'm hoping that it gets some traction, and maybe somebody will look into that. Just another little bit of piece of information. My next door neighbor managed to get an inoculation against COVID-19, and I'm happy to report that he told me he had no symptoms after getting it. whatever that's worth.
Could you check with the city and see if they've upgraded those streets to LED lights yet? Because I know they're on a
circuit.
they're on an upgrade. Maybe we could move that one farther forward, because the LED lights are a lot brighter and save money too, so.
Yep.
Thank you. Director Magner, I just realized that I have men on one side of me and women on the other. I have like a whole new thing I need to be worried about, like, make sure that I give everybody equal treatment, so. I'm aware of it. Director Magner.
Okay. First of all, I would like to welcome Director Roberts and Director Dransfeldt. I think you probably started to get your little more education tonight. I'll tell you, I've been on this board for, 12, 13 years now, and I learn every month. It is a learning experience, and I think you will find that no matter how many times you look at this, listen to the presentations, you still learn a lot of things. So want to personally thank Connor again for the Santa Claus. If you know where I live, why they went by my house at 55 miles an hour, but that's okay. I waved at him. I went, woohoo, because I was hanging over the wall. But I seen a lot of very positive comments on Facebook and things, so I think that was a great way to go. And I just want to thank the staff and hope everybody had good holidays, and that everybody stays safe. And I don't know who else has got their vaccine, but I'm not sure if I'm 1B, 1C, 2F, 35D, I don't know. So we'll get it when we get it, I guess. So, thank you.
Okay. Director Roberts.
Just like to start and just thank the board and staff for the warm welcome in December. I know things were, the timing was a little off with the certification, and but it was very nice to be able to be sworn in out in the park and participate. And we appreciate the welcome that you gave our families, or you gave my family. And I'd also like to acknowledge Directors Mishler and Dixon. I know that they've done a lot for the district, and as we've gone through the process of campaigning and talking to people, I've heard nothing but great things about both of them, and I appreciate their service as well. So, I'd also like to acknowledge the employees and staff for the dedication. I know that the last many months has been very difficult, and just seeing what you've been able to do with the district and what you've been continuing to do during the pandemic is impressive. And with the limited budget that you do have, it's very impressive that where the district is and where it's positioned, and the dedication, and the fact that you're still able to adapt and overcome and do events like the letter writing and Santa and Halloween. So really appreciate that. Thank you. And I think that's about it. Thought it was a good first meeting. I appreciate the education we'll be getting from you guys, as well as from the board, as well as staff. And that's pretty much it. I think I'll wrap it up since it's getting a little late. Thanks.
Yeah, I judge myself on whether I can get us out of here by 9 p.m., so I think, unless Bev has a lot to talk about, we're going to be good.
I just had a question, Mary. I know you and I discussed this, is if there was an update on food share?
So we're still working through some of those items. So we've been working with Capri, working with Food Share. So a little background with that. So Matt Lorimer started the program We had been using, or he had been working with Food Share and a nonprofit who had actually been delivering the food, and then the district was distributing it, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So Food Share did an audit that the audit determined that that organization couldn't continue to do that. So we're trying to figure out if we can fill the gap. The challenge that we're now faced with is, does the district now have to drive, go pick up? How many staff members is it going to take? So we're still working through all those logistics. Still working with Food Share as well. So I should have probably more of an update in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I'm still trying to figure out, working with staff and Food Share to see what that looks like. We're also trying to figure out if there's another partner agency that maybe that would be willing to volunteer to go do all the pickups and do that, and we'd still be able to distribute. So we're still working through some of that.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I was just curious about current reservation policies. Are people still able to rent facilities? And under what circumstances?
So right now, and Karen probably can help me with this as well, so literally on a day-to-day basis, we're literally looking at and seeing what the county will provide, what we can and can't do. So according to the state right now, there's no gatherings. So at one point you could do households, but that right now is limited. So items that we can do right now, church services or cultural. So we do have we do have some, but those have to still be outside. So people can rent to do those kinds of things, but it has to be outside. We can do fitness classes, those have to be outside. So anything that is in the guidelines that would fall under what we do, then we will try and rent. But it's very specific on some of those things that we can and can't do. Some of the, as I mentioned earlier, with some of the sports can, but it has to be skills and drills. So we can't do games or tournaments or any of those kinds of things. So any of those organizations, what we have asked them to do is they would need to get their own attestation and go through that process. So then they are responsible for, and that's kind of where our Capri has asked us to go with a lot of those things. So anything that's like that, that's reoccurring, we'll make those organizations go through the attestation, make sure that they have to have their own prevention plan, they have to do all the postings and do all of those kinds of things. So does that answer your question?
Yes, that does. Thank you. Those were just two of the things, but also echoing just other comments of the Santa Parade and just how awesome it was. It was really exciting. I walked out and I could see another mom looking at her phone. We're both looking and trying to figure out where's Santa going. And then so more people came out and we kind of encouraged other people if they were just hanging out in the garage, like, hey, come see Santa, he's coming. And some of them had no idea. So it was really cool to see that. It was a fond childhood memory of mine because we would have Santa come through the fire department, but he came at night and it was multiple nights. And everyone would be out in the street waiting with their blankets and hot cocoa and everything. And it just was nice to connect with the community and have that excitement. And then Connor always does an incredible job, and I'm so thankful for him and Macy and the entire recreation team for being able to pull off what they did. And also very thankful for Letters to Santa to see that continue and grow. And I can't wait to see it get to the thousands. I know it's going to get there soon. And I just also wanted to say thank you, everyone, for the warm welcome, for having us on this board, and for everyone that voted for Jordan and I. I really appreciate it, and it means the world. I'm just honored that people have placed their faith in us, and really hope to be able to serve the entire community. And if anyone wants to get in touch, they can email me at directordransfeldt@pvrpd.org, or always contact me on my cell, 805-419-0793.
Thank you. Excellent. Excellent. You guys are going to do good. This is what democracy is supposed to look like. So I have one quick thing I want to mention that I left off my list, and that is that the Pony Baseball Snack Bar is open on Saturdays and Sundays from 11:30 to 2. And their double cheeseburger, Mrs. Malloy says, is as good or better than In-N-Out Burger. Now, that's pretty impressive stuff.
So does
But-
Mr. Magner.
For $7, for a double cheeseburger, fries, and a Coke, and you get to look at our beautiful baseball fields and our pool.
time is that?
It's a heck of a deal. Saturday and Sunday, I think they open around 11:30 and they're open till 2. So, and they're very quick. You know, they're used to feeding, you know, a 8 ball fields worth of kids and people.
Those aren't
so.
sitting in a tray somewhere for an hour.
No.
And-
Clark does an awesome job.
And they bake really good corn burritos, and his specialty right now is deep fried Orioles with a scoop of ice cream with hot fudge over it, so no calories at all, none, but price is right, it's $7.
Yes, excellent. Shameless plug concluded. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks for using WebEx. Visit our website at www.